Welcome to the Soul Session with Samira Seraphini. You landed here for a reason. You're ready to heal your heart, embody authentic confidence, and soften into your feminine energy. It's time to live in true alignment and manifest a blissful life. Let's begin. Hello, my loves. Welcome back to the Soul Session. I'm Samira Seraphini, intuitive therapist, host of this podcast, and creator of the Soul Method. If you're new here, I'm so glad you found your way. And if you've been here before, thank you for coming back. Today marks something special. This week, we're launching a 3-part series, the Soul Method series. And this series is something I wanted to create it for a long time now because it's essentially a map of the work I do in sessions, in this podcast, in everything. The Soul Method has 3 pillars: heal, align, manifest. And over the next 3 episodes, we're going into each one. Today, we begin with heal. So this episode is called Heal, Release Trauma, Family Patterns, the Emotional Blocks. And I want to open with a question. Have you ever felt like you're doing everything right? You're growing, you are aware, you're working on yourself, and yet something keeps pulling you back to the same place? The same relationship dynamic, emotional response, or the same pattern, dressed in different clothes? If that's familiar, this episode is about why that happens and what to actually do about it. Let me ask you something. Do you feel stuck? Like you're not making progress in your healing journey, no matter how much you read, reflect, or try? Or do you find it difficult to integrate things from your past? Not forget them, just find some kind of peace with them? Or do you keep attracting similar situations, like similar people, conflicts, pain, even when you've done so much work to change? Or maybe you are aware of a wound, you can name it, understand it intellectually, and yet it's still there, still running in the background, still showing up when you least expect it. If any of this is you, what I want you to know is this is not a failure. This is not a sign that healing isn't working. It is a sign that something hasn't been integrated yet. And integration is exactly what we're going to explore today. I've been working as an intuitive therapist for 7 years now. And in that time, I worked with hundreds of clients trained in multiple modalities: family constellation, theta healing, transurfing, and somatic work. And I've also done my own deep inner work. And the Soul Method came out of all of that. It's not a theory I read in a book. It's a distillation of what actually moves things, what actually creates real shifts, not just insights. And what I found consistently is this: you cannot align or manifest your way out of unintegrated trauma. That's why heal comes first. Before we talk about alignment and manifestation, we have to talk about what's still stuck and how to actually move it. And that's what today's episode is for. Here's what we're going to cover today. First, what trauma actually is, not the dramatic version, the everyday version, the one that lives quietly in your nervous system. The 5 things people get wrong when trying to heal, the approach that feels productive but actually keeps you stuck, and finally, my 3-step framework I use in sessions. We close with a practice, a homework exercise that will help you start identifying your own patterns. And at the end of this episode, I'll tell you what's coming in part 2. So let's begin. Before we go into the framework, let's talk about what trauma actually is. Because I think the word trauma scares a lot of people. They hear it and they think big events, dramatic experiences, things that happen to other people. But that's not quite right. I want you to think of trauma as a broken heart. Literally, like 2 pieces separated. When something happens that your system couldn't fully process, whether it was a betrayal, a loss, a childhood wound, a pattern in your family that you absorb before you even had words for it, it creates a mark, a division, a before and an after. And what happens then? Your nervous system, this incredibly intelligent system, freezes at that moment. Imagine a film reel. You're watching a movie, your life, and it gets stuck. The frame freezes on that specific scene. So life continues. You grow up, you move cities, you meet people, you achieve things. But in your nervous system, in your energy field, there is still a part of you living in that frozen frame. And because something in you is still there, still stuck, your system will try to resolve it. How? By recreating it. And that's why you attract the same type of partner. This is why the same conflict keeps showing up at work. This is why you feel triggered by things that seems too small to cause the reaction they cause. Your system isn't broken. It's trying to solve something that was never fully integrated. So trauma healing is the thread that sews those 2 pieces back together. Not to erase what happened, but to complete what was left unfinished. Now, before I give you the framework, I want to talk about what doesn't work. Because most people I work with have tried something. They've tried hard and they're still stuck. So I made note of 5 approaches I see most often that feel like healing but aren't really healing. 1, trying to understand. Analyzing the wound endlessly, reading about it, talking about it, mapping it. Understanding is important, but understanding alone doesn't move the stuck energy. You can know exactly why you do something and still do it. Number 2, trying to forgive. Forcing forgiveness before you're ready performing it because you've been told that's how you heal. Real forgiveness is a byproduct of integration, not a prerequisite. If you try to force it, it will stay surface level. Number 3, trying to fix. Going back in to repair the relationship, the situation, the person. But the wound isn't out there in them externally. It's in your nervous system. And you can't fix your way out of a frozen frame. Number 4, trying to change others. Hoping they will apologize, hoping they will shift, and adapting your healing to their behavior. This keeps you waiting indefinitely. And number 5, trying to erase. Acting as if it didn't happen, bypassing the wound with positivity, distraction, or just moving on. But what you resist persists, and what you bypassed resurface. I see all of this in clients who came to me, and I want to say this with so much love. If you tried any of this, you're not doing it wrong. You're doing what humans do. You're trying to make the pain stop. But there is a different way. So here's the framework. 3 steps. Accept, integrate, move forward. Let's dive deep into each one of this. So the first step, accept. Not as a spiritual performance, not as a statement of approval, as a simple, honest acknowledgement of reality. This happened. This is what it was. We cannot change the past. You cannot change who they were or what they did. You cannot change the family you were born into. And here's why acceptance is so powerful. Because resistance uses energy. So when you resist, deny, or fight against what happened, you're not protecting yourself from it. You're feeding it. Think of a river. You place a stone in the middle. The water doesn't disappear. It builds up behind the stone until it breaks through as a flood. The same thing happens emotionally. So what you resist doesn't dissolve. It accumulates inside of you until something cracks it open. So an argument, a triggering relationship, a moment of overwhelmed that seems disproportionate to what caused it. So acceptance says, I see this. I'm not fighting it. And in that simple gesture, energy begins to move. Step 2, integrate. And this is where the real alchemy happens. Integration means completing the emotional cycle that was interrupted when the wound first happened. Think about it this way. When something painful happens, especially in childhood, you often cannot fully feel it in that moment. Your nervous system protects you. It freezes, it manages, but the emotion doesn't disappear. It goes underground. Integration is returning to that emotion safely in your own time and letting it complete. Maybe that's grief you never cried. Maybe it's anger you were never fully allowed to express. Maybe it's the sadness of a version of yourself that needed something they never received. So when you complete that cycle, when the emotion finally moves all the way through, something releases. The frozen frame thaws. The river flows again. I want to give you a real example from a session. A client came to me repeating the same pattern in relationships. Every time she got close to someone, she would pull back, create distance, or sabotage connection just when it was deepening. She knew she did that. She analyzed it for years, but still she couldn't stop. When we went into the field together, what emerged was a grief she never completed, a loss from years ago, someone she loved deeply who left suddenly. She had managed it at the time, moved on, been strong, but the cycle of grief never finished. So her nervous system learned closeness equal lost. And every time love got real or too close, it froze. In the session, she finally let herself cry that grief. Not as a dramatic movement, quietly. So she let it move through. And something in her nervous system said, oh, it's safe now. She didn't have to do anything else because the integration happened. And with that, the pattern began to dissolve. Step 3, move forward. And this one is important because I see many people get stuck in a healing loop. They dig, they process, they uncover, they cry, and then they go back to the beginning and do it again. Healing without moving forward is like cleaning a wound and then picking at it before it closes. Moving forward doesn't mean bypassing. It doesn't mean pretending it's done before it is. It means once something has been accepted and integrated, gently, intentionally, returning your attention to life, because the opposite of trauma isn't the absence of pain, it's the presence of life. And there is a real trap in healing culture where the wound becomes the identity, where you keep looking for what was done to you instead of who you are becoming in the process. So moving forward is the breath after the release. It's the day after the session where something shifted. It's choosing consciously to put your attention on what's ahead rather than staying in the story of what was. Not because the past doesn't matter, but because your actual life, the present moment, matters more. And I want to say something here. This framework, accept, integrate, move forward, sounds clear when I lay it out like this. And it is clear. But knowing the framework is not the same as moving through it. Because integration is personal. Your frozen frame is specific to you. Your family system, nervous system, emotional history, these are unique to you. And the work of actually moving the stuck energy requires more than understanding. It requires being witnessed, being held in a field where the work can happen. And that's what I do in the soul session. We find your specific root, we work with it somatically, systemically, energetically, and we move it in a way that is precise, compassionate, and designed around exactly where you are. So, if something in today's episode is resonating, if you recognize your own frozen frame, you can check the link in the show notes. Just you and me, one session, no pressure, the door is open. If you're tired of circling the same pattern, if you're done understanding and ready to actually shift, that's exactly what we do together. So for today's practice, I'm giving you homework. Yes, not a meditation, not a visualization, something more active. Something that will give you something real to work with. I call it the pattern map. So here's what I want you to do. Find a quiet moment, maybe tonight or tomorrow morning. Take a piece of paper or open a journal or your note apps, whatever works for you. And I want to ask yourself 4 questions. Just observe. Don't judge what comes up. Question 1. What thoughts repeat in my mind? The ones that come back again and again. About yourself, about love, money, about the world. Question 2. What emotions keep showing up? Not occasionally, but consistently. Anxiety, a low-grade sadness, a feeling of not being good enough, a tightness that doesn't fully go away. What situations keep recurring in my life? In relationships, in work, in money, in how people treat me? What's the theme that keeps appearing? Question 4. what patterns exist in my family. Not to blame, to observe. What did the people before you struggle with? What was the emotional climate you grew up in? What was modeled for you about love, about worthiness, about what life is or should be? When you look at all four of those lists together, you start to see the threads, the places where your internal world and your external reality are connected, where the frozen frame lives. And this is the beginning of knowing what needs to be healed. And I want to say this is brave work because most people never stop to look at this. They move through life reacting. So the fact that you're here, that you did this, means something huge. And if you want to keep going with this kind of inner work, with exercises to help you identify patterns, integrate emotions, and move forward, the Becoming You Activation Workbook was made exactly for this. It's free, 5 days of practice, and you can find the link to download in the show notes. And if you love this kind of reflective somatic inner work, you're going to love what's coming in part 2. So let's bring this together. Trauma, in the way I use the word, is not just traumatic events. It's any experience that your system couldn't fully process, that led a frozen frame in your nervous system, and that keeps creating itself in your life until it's integrated. The approaches that don't work, trying to understand endlessly, forcing forgiveness, trying to fix, waiting for others to change, or bypassing the pain entirely. This feels like healing, but they keep you circling. So the framework that does, the SOUL method framework for healing is accept, make peace with reality, not approval, not forgetting, just stopping the fight against what is. Integrate, so you complete the emotional cycle that was interrupted. You let the grief move, the anger have space, the frozen frame thaw. And last but not least, you move forward. You return your attention to life. Because healing that never moves forward isn't healing. It's a loop. So here's the before and after. Before, you're stuck in a pattern you cannot explain. You know something is off, but nothing you try seems to shift it. And you feel like healing is a destination you can never quite reach. And after this session, you have a framework. You know what the work actually is and what it isn't. You know that what feels stuck is asking to be completed, not erased. And you have a starting point, your pattern map. Your one action this week, do the pattern map exercise. 4 questions, 20 minutes, and bring what you find with you to part 2 of this series. Because in the next episode, we move into a line. And align can only happen in what's already being freed. So heal creates the space. Align is what fills it with your true identity, your real voice, your authentic self. But you cannot build on frozen ground. That's why we started here today. If today's episode named something you've been carrying, a pattern you try to understand but cannot quite shift, the soul session is the space for that. We go into the specific root and we do the work that actually integrates it, not just understand it. Check the link in the show notes, and I'm here if you feel the call. And keep going between the episodes. Download the Becoming You workbook, free in the show notes. Subscribe to my newsletter, is where I share more of my own process, and it's one of the most intimate space I share online. And you can reply directly. I love hearing from you. If this episode resonated, share it with one person who needs it, and a review on the podcast helps more women find their way here. All the links are in the description. Part 2 drops later this week, so stay tuned. And in that episode, we will move into Align. But here's what I want you to understand before we get there. Heal and Align are not two separate things you can do in any order. They are a sequence, and the sequence matters. Align means reconnecting with who you truly are. Your authentic voice, real desire, and genuine direction. Because the thing is, you cannot hear your authentic self over the noise of unintegrated trauma. So you can set intentions, follow routines, or create vision boards and repeat affirmations. But if the frozen frame is still there underneath, your alignment will keep collapsing back into the old pattern, that old identity, that old loop. So Heal creates the space, and Align fills it with your true self, not the conditioned one. That's why this episode comes first. That's why we started here. So you do your pattern map this week. Look at the 4 questions. See the threads. Bring what you find. Because in part 2, we use it, all of it. Before I go, I want to leave you with something I believe completely. Your trauma is not a life sentence. It's an invitation to complete something, to integrate and become more whole. Because a woman who changes her life is healing her whole lineage. Thank you so much for being here today. I'll see you in part 2. Sending you so much love. If you made it to the end of this episode, it means you're truly committed to healing your heart and living in true alignment. I see you, and I'm so proud of you. Make sure to subscribe to the Soul Session so you never miss our weekly time together. And if you enjoy what you heard, please leave a review and share your biggest takeaway. I'd love to hear from you. For exclusive content straight to your inbox, subscribe to my weekly newsletter. And if you're ready to quantum leap into your next level, book a one-on-one session with me. You'll find all links in the description. Thank you for being here, sending you so much love. Until next time.